I am Andrew from Just Psychology, and in this video you clicked, or I hope so, I hope no one forced you. We're going to talk a bit about Jubilee's latest video. Should men have a say? Anti-abortion versus pro-abortion teens. Or in other words, we put young people with completely different opinions in a small circle to talk about issues we a priori know they disagree in order to have some rage and get more views. And I'm all here for that. It's honestly the first time I watched as well, so let's get to it.
You are arguing for the slaughter of human beings because you're pro-choice. And I'm standing here in where
strong word.
Where a fetus cannot.
You said killing a fetus, so it's not a strong word.
It's really not. But could I just finish my statement?
Well, the intro alone. The intro alone is a masterpiece. Let's say no more.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. I have had unprotected sex.
So I see we all been getting it on.
So pro and anti-abortion people both have had unprotected sex. Who could predict something like that to happen? Well, I could, and every single one of you probably. They are all humans. I can't see how they can fight for that question. Kinda weird though that the only two men in the panel are also the only ones who haven't had unprotected sex. And that's stereotype. Let's see.
When I had sex, I didn't have the knowledge that I should have, I think. I didn't know what plan B was until I started having sex. Maybe I missed that day in class, but that was not taught in sex ed. So I didn't know what plan B was until I started having sex. But now I'm a lot more educated, a lot more comfortable. I'm on birth control. But obviously, birth control isn't always effective, isn't always accessible. So I understand my privilege in that.
Sorry if I'm being ignorant here, but how do you know what sex is and you're having sexual intercourse on some basis, and at the same time you don't know what a condom is? I mean, yeah, there might be some aspects he didn't know at the time, but all the other things he said sounded to me like an excuse to mask the fact that she probably was too naive to think about potential consequences. Which is not so bad. We are all naive once, but just say it, come on.
I immediately, as soon as I knew that resource was accessible to me, I put myself on birth control. But unfortunately, birth control isn't the end-all be-all, and from putting myself on several forms of birth control, I realized that the adverse effects of birth control can be very, very altering. And currently, I'm in a very long-term committed relationship with my boyfriend, and of course, when you have someone attractive, you want to have sex with them, and he's the first person I've really started participating in unprotected sex with.
The first time that I had unprotected sex was unprotected sex was with the person that I am currently married to. We got married straight out of high school. I was 18. It was a week after I graduated. And we're really happy together. And we love the idea of having a child, currently pregnant right now.
Heck yeah!
That's, so clearly I had unprotected sex to get here.
Are you going to college, or do you have a job? How's that working?
So I mainly do activism. I try to advocate for people who are in the same position as the person inside of me right now. And I think that the value of their life is intrinsic to every fetus. So honestly, right now, I'm just chilling as an activist.
So, you get the idea. She doesn't only believe the morality of abortions as a caution, she also is an activist advocating for fetus' rights. I did not expect things to sail smoothly. Congratulations for the baby though.
If you were having unprotected sex, would you say that you would have been financially stable enough to have a child?
No.
No? Would you say you would have been emotionally ready enough to have a child?
No.
Okay. All right then.
I think I was in kind of a similar situation to you. Not so much because I was pressured by a partner or anything like that, but because the sex ed courses that we had, like yours was lacking, were very lacking in terms of queer sexual education. And the sex I was having, I thought I didn't need any kind of protection for it because I was sleeping with people who couldn't get me pregnant.
Women. You were having sex with women. Say it. The only people who can get you pregnant are women or men with weak sperm. Don't use that ideology, please.
First time I've ever had unprotected sex, I was young enough to not know what sex even was. So I was very much manipulated and groomed by someone in my life to think that what I was doing was okay and normal. And that scared me because, you know, when I finally told my parents, it wasn't a really good conversation where they were like, of course they were shocked because that person is in our family. And they were like, that isn't real, you're just trying to get it for attention kind of thing. And then, but in a sense I knew that they believed me because we went to some dingy ass Walmart and bought a pregnancy test because they were like, if you are pregnant, you can't tell anyone that it's his, you have to say that we adopted another child.
That's just sad. And another thing that often happens is when someone realizes that there's a groomer in the family, instead of exposing them and confronting them, they try to shame the victim. That's unacceptable. I'm sorry it happened to her and many other men and women.
I have had an abortion.
I had mine about a year and a half ago. And I've never felt shame, never felt regret. I've never even second-guessed my choice. Surprisingly, my parents are Middle Eastern immigrants, and they were very supportive.
She said her parents support her fully. It's crazy how easily people can forget about their morals when there's a threat in front of them. I'm not judging her and them. I might have done the same as well in a similar situation. Being a teen mom is not great, and it's not easy, but getting rid of all the consequences of your actions and killing a human being, in my opinion, is not owning up to your mistakes. You just can't magically erase the problem. This can't be the solution. Also, you saying that felt no remorse or regret makes me feel like you did, or still do.
It was a very unexpected event. I remember having symptoms almost immediately. I was about 6 weeks, I believe, 5 weeks and 7 days. I actually did not suspect I was pregnant because I had been going through some traumatic life events that threw my cycle off. My period was on average 40 days late, so I just didn't suspect anything when I was 6 days late that past cycle. And my boyfriend, who I was confiding in at the time and telling about my current bodily circumstances, had a feeling beyond me, the woman in this equation who should know what's going on. He was the one that prompted me to go get a test because he felt that I was pregnant. And when we found out, it was a shock. I'm the type of person when in my relationships, I make very clear my positions on how I am with abortion and pregnancy and child rearing. I'm very transparent in that matter because there should be no room for error in that case, but that's because I'm fortunate enough to be educated in that manner. I'm a volunteer with Planned Parenthood, so I knew the resources available to me, and at that time, when I did conceive, it was not when I was on birth control. And so partially, I take responsibility for the circumstances that led to the conception of that pregnancy. Although I'm very grateful and I'm very appreciative that I had access to this form of healthcare, it was something that I grieved heavily. It was something that my boyfriend grieved heavily. We were not ecstatic to have done this. We were not happy that we had to make this choice. But because of our plans as individuals, as adults, and our life plan is to get married, is to complete school, and to maximize our chances of being the parents that we want to be, I felt it irresponsible to be selfish and say, well, I want a baby and I don't want to make that hard choice to terminate. But when you think of somebody else, and that would have been another individual, you have to think what's best for them.
You know what's actually selfish and irresponsible? Is getting rid of a human or human the process, whichever your viewpoint is, in order to achieve your personal goals. I just don't get it. How can you justify this action by saying that it just doesn't collide with my personal goals? You are not making pasta for the evening. You are erasing an entity. And Alexandra here is way more honest than the previous girl. She understands that what she did is not simple, but was not mature enough to brace the consequences of her actions. There are people and organizations who can help. Never forget that.
This unborn life. And I'm like, what about me? But I was actually going through it. You can have all these hypotheticals about you're pushing this onto the unborn life. First of all, they never existed. They are not aware of their existence. It's not a hypothetical about what they could have become or you know, you're not giving them the right to life. They never existed.
First of all, they existed scientifically. Scientifically, an unborn fetus matches all of the qualifications that NASA has for a living individual organism. Secondly, I'd like to say, what right does anybody have to mitigate the outcomes of their own mistakes by oppressing another human being inside of them, by using unjust violence and excessive force against a peaceful being inside of them?
What about rape or incest?
I got pregnant from rape. 4 years ago, I got pregnant from rape. I was raped for years of my life. I have physical symptoms of that. I have reproductive issues as a result of that. But I think it's important to say that babies like my daughter Rachel, as I talked about before, and babies like my daughter Mira, who I got pregnant with consensually, are the same. They're DNA-wise. There is nothing different in the DNA, the human DNA, between a baby who's conceived in rape and a baby who's conceived consensually.
That's harsh. As you all understood, I'm anti-abortion. Let's not kid ourselves here. But even I am not sure about the victims of rape. It's psychologically damaging to know that the kid you hold in your hands is a seed of rape, of such a violent and dehumanizing action. But let me ask something else. Why do pro-abortion people always say this as an argument? Why do you have to justify the whole argument with an extreme minority of cases? It's not valid, it just doesn't make sense. Deep down I sincerely believe that those people understand that removing a fetus of your body is not the same as removing bacteria. Again, psychologically and only psychologically, they are indeed different. It's a really gruesome and hard for the state of the mother to bring into this world a child that's a byproduct of rape. It's not the same. I'm happy that she could find the balance though, and she loves her daughter unconditionally.
Say that abortion is not evidence-based care for rape victims. There's no research that shows that the outcomes of rape victims getting an abortion is better than those who do not. So if we want to go purely based off of medical science and evidence-based care,
No.
yeah,
I will push back that we do have statistical evidence that shows that women who have access to abortion and in societies where abortion is accessible, there is an overwhelming decrease in the amount of abortions obtained, and there's also an increase in the economic, emotional, and physical advancements of the people who have access to that care. And I will...
Okay, let's think about what she told us here. If you can legally get an abortion, there's a higher chance you will. It's easier to live as a single person than having the responsibility of a child. Who could guess?
I personally believe it is a life. It is. I mean, I held mine in my hands, but to equate that to me, an already birthed human being, this thing, I have a photo of it in my phone. I was going to bring my ultrasound as well, but I thought that would be triggering for some people. But what I possessed in my hands when I took it out of my pants, when I expelled it from my body, I think it is ludicrous to equate that to me. There was no head, there was no arms, there was no legs, there was nothing there.
How far along were you?
I was 5 weeks and 7 days.
You were 5 weeks and 7 days?
Yes. And I had the privilege.
Do you know that at 5 weeks a baby has a heartbeat?
Bro, that's just a logical fallacy. So, if you believe that a complete human being is someone with a head, 2 feet and 2 hands, amputees are not humans. If you believe that humans should have some level of intelligence, people with mental disabilities are not humans. If you believe that humans should be able to breathe autonomously, people who need mechanical assistance are not humans. That is a dangerous thought. That's such a strong mistake from here. Humans, like every other being, have developmental stages. Just because you paused a human's developmental stage at the beginning, that doesn't make the fetus less of a human.
You remove it. Heart cells, it's electrical impulses, but I mean, when we talk about life, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think when you draw the conclusion of what is life, I don't think that is a legal question. I think that is a moral and philosophical argument.
Thank God that's a legal argument as well, because in the past there are many people who had a different opinion on this issue than the one the law and most people have today. Come on now.
Is a stage of development, but I don't think you afford that stage of development the same human rights that you would a full-grown human being. It's the reason why we make a distinction between children and adults. A child can develop into an adult. Do we automatically ascribe them, you can drink, you can vote? Well, they are not that yet. And why make that distinction but then say...
But how does that give us the authority to kill the child?
I'm not saying give you the authority to kill a child, but I think if that... The argument that I'm making is I feel like there is a fundamental difference between something being attached to you, reliant on your resources, and something being dependent on you for other types of resources beyond your physical body. It's the
That an unborn child is worth more than their mother.
I'd rather abort a child than put them through the foster care system.
And this is, like, I didn't consider this until I myself was put into that situation where it's not just get pregnant, put the kid in the foster system. It's that, again, like I said, 9 months of pregnancy. And I would not go through those 9 months of pregnancy, even though if I had the option of giving my kid up to the foster care system, like, you have to still go through those 9 months of pregnancy. It's not just, you can just drop it off.
So in order not to be tired for 9 months, just throw a being of your body. Also, don't give it the chance to live. Don't get tired, don't try it, don't out for your mistakes. Let's conclude, because I don't want this video to be too long. I was waiting for some strong arguments from their pro-abortion team, but it became immediately apparent to me that the obscurity which they are just trying to mask their insecurities and maturity and justify the fact that they weren't yet ready to feel the consequences of their actions. The lengths that some of them went to justify their actions amazed me. At the same time, they are young. They want to live their lives and achieve their dreams. I can totally understand how a pregnancy can seem like a huge obstacle to that, but this is not the solution. It is a hard, inhumane process that modern day media want to portray as something normal. It's not. I was Andrew from Just Psychology, and until the next one, I am out. Keep smiling.